how do you get infected with coronavirus? The way you get infected with coronavirus is you get virus into your eye or your nose or your mouth. How would a virus get into those areas? Well, somebody who's infected will cough or sneeze. And when they do, there are little droplets of saliva that come out of the mouth and spread through the air. If you happen to be standing within maybe 1 to 2 meters of somebody who's coughing at you, then you can get virus into your eyes, your nose, or your mouth. And that's one way to get infected. If you are a close household contact of somebody with an infection or a healthcare worker, that's a way that you worry about. But most people are not going to be standing right next to somebody with coronavirus. Those droplets, they don't go very far. So the way that most people are at risk for infection is that the person with the infection touches their eyes, their nose, their mouth, they cough onto their hands, and then they touch something else. They touch an elevator button, they touch a doorknob, they touch a subway pole, they touch a table. And then you come along an hour later or a day later or 2 days later, and you touch that same thing, and then you touch your eyes, your nose, your mouth. So that's why the main guidance for preventing coronavirus infection, if you're an ordinary person, is not to wear a mask, but to wash your hands, constantly to wash your hands.
And you have got to wear these masks from time to time. You get tested on them regularly. And I've seen a Twitter thread in which you dictate and say exactly the sort of process you go through. It sounds quite intense. And really, if you could just explain that to us to show how people might be wearing these wrongly.
Sure. Well, there's 2 kinds of masks. One kind of mask is a surgical mask. It's just like a piece of sort of paper or cloth that goes across your face. That kind of mask is very effective for stopping somebody from coughing and spreading the disease. So we use those masks for people who are infected or for healthcare workers or family members who are close by. There's a different kind of mask that's called an N95 respirator that actually forms an airtight seal around the nose and the mouth so nothing can get in. We actually use those for airborne diseases, not respiratory droplet diseases like tuberculosis or measles. Coronavirus is not an airborne disease. So an ordinary person has no use for an N95 respirator mask. The reason that it's not useful to use that is that, in fact, they're quite difficult to use. They must be fit properly to the face. And in fact, every healthcare worker who uses these must be tested every year to make sure that they fit properly. And this is the test. They put a hood over our face, we put the mask on, and then they spray aspartame, an artificial sweetener, into the hood. If we can taste the sweetener, then the mask is not working. It's not airtight. If we don't taste the sweetener, then they say, all right, move your head side to side, and they spray it again. We have to make sure we don't taste the sweetener. Then they make us move our head up and down. Then they make us go kneel to the ground and stand up, kneel to the ground and stand up. And then they make us read a paragraph, usually about rainbows, out loud. And if after all of that movement and motion and face changes, we still don't taste the artificial sweetener, then they know that the mask is working. Nobody who's just buying a mask off the shelf at a store is going to have anywhere near that kind of testing. And it's very likely that the mask won't fit. These masks come in different sizes and in different shapes to fit the face.
And Dr. Leora, just quickly, what is your one piece of advice? We've heard already about washing the hands. What is the key piece of advice that you would say to people in order for them to take some sort of protections here?
That is my key piece of advice. Wash your hands. Try not to touch things. Try not to touch your face. Use your hips to open doors. Use your elbow to press elevator buttons. And stay away from large crowds where there's a higher risk that somebody might have it in your vicinity. But the most important thing is not to wear a mask necessarily. In fact, the World Health Organization does not recommend wearing masks. The most important thing is to wash your hands.